This week, we can hardly contain our excitement for the upcoming release of Watch Dogs 2. Mike digs through his Videogame Shoebox to catch up with an old plumber friend. And we take a look at Radeon's latest video card offerings. This is Player Attack. Hi, I'm Jessica Citizen, and this week we've been hearing all sorts of rumours about just how the Nintendo Switch will actually work. We're told the handheld portion of the device will feature a 6.2-inch touchscreen capable of 10-point multi-touch, a first for Nintendo. As well as that, patent documents suggest that behind the screen is some impressive gadgetry. A camera, a gyroscope, GPS, compass, motion tracking, image recognition, and even a projector that can display an image onto a nearby surface. This means the device could be capable of not only the now standard things like steering a car, but also more innovative applications like playing rock, paper, scissors with you, or even catching a virtual ball that has been hit out from the screen. For what it's worth, Nintendo has announced that its next big information dump will be on January 12, so please take these with a grain of salt. Or 3. Something you can believe though, there are 6 times more mods for Skyrim on Xbox One than on PS4. Looks like the ability to use external assets really is a big deal. But, speaking of mods, Skyrim Special Edition has just launched for PC, PS4 and Xbox One, and while you can import your PC saves into the new game, they might not work as intended. If you've never modded your game, you should be right, but if you have changed anything, your save probably won't transfer happily, meaning you'll probably have to start over if you want to enjoy the shiny new content. And speaking of mods and such, it seems the team at Rockstar Games has been doing a little housekeeping when it comes to GTA Online. First up, gamers who made their riches by exploiting glitches or mods have logged in to find billions of dollars missing from their in-game bank accounts. As part of an effort to keep the gameplay environment fair, the studio has simply pulled a truckload of illegitimately gained cash straight out of the game's economy. Then, in an effort to stop more people from cheating, Rockstar has ramped up its ban and suspension policy. It's now a 2-strike process triggered by a number of factors, including modding, exploiting glitches, manipulating game data, or interfering with other players' gameplay experience. That is, misbehaving online. Get in trouble once, you'll get a temporary suspension from the game and a complete character reset, including all of your GTA progress, property, and possessions. Cheat again and you'll be on the receiving end of a permanent ban with no hope of appeal. In quick news, Microsoft has announced that anything you can do, I can do better, finally revealing plans for its own virtual reality headset expected to hit shelves in 2017. The first we've heard about HoloLens in quite a while, the company has confirmed it is teaming up with hardware makers Acer, Asus, Dell, HP and Lenovo, promising cheaper headsets that won't require a high-end PC to run. The closed beta for Gwent, the Witcher card game, has kicked off on PC and Xbox One with the first wave of invitation emails sent out last week. If you spent all your time in The Witcher 3 hanging out in taverns playing cards, you've probably already signed up for access to this one, but if you haven't yet, head to playgwent.com and put your name down. When Destiny first launched back in September 2014, it generated more than $47.5 million in its first month, combining physical and digital retail copies. Fast forward 2 years and it looks like Bungie's game has somehow gotten even more popular. September 2016 saw the launch of major expansion pack Rise of Iron, which generated more than $59 million in a month, and that's just digital sales, completely ignoring the new physical release of Destiny: The Collection. Turtle Rock Studios has officially announced that, despite its title, Evolve will no longer be growing or changing. The 4v1 shooter recently jumped to a free-to-play model, but it seems that even that wasn't enough to keep it alive. The company explains that it had huge aspirations for Evolve, but their time on the planet Sheer has come to an end. The developer never quite spells out why there will be no more content updates, patches, or support for Evolve, but its farewell letter does include the bitter observation that this is the life of AAA game developers who aren't self-funded and don't own their own IP. At this stage, it looks like the servers will remain online for some time, so you can keep playing for now. And finally this week, 2 exciting bits of movie news, both from the director's chair. First up, the Uncharted movie has another new director on board after Joe Carnahan deserted the project to go work on Bad Boys for Life with Martin Lawrence and Will Smith. Don't be too upset though, the latest name is even better. Sean Levi, whose portfolio is a little eclectic: Big Fat Liar, Date Night, Real Steel, and the Night at the Museum franchise. That said, his most recent success was the cult smash Netflix gem Stranger Things, so it looks like he knows what people want. Still, no word on just who will play Nathan Drake. And in devastating news, Uwe Boll has announced he is no longer making movies. Boll, the director of such incredible game adaptations as Postal, Alone in the Dark, Blood Rain and Far Cry, has decided the film market is dead and explains he simply cannot afford to make more great works.
Some terrors can never be stopped.
Every culture's got a story about the end of the world, doesn't it?
But not every story starts to become true.
In his parting statements, Boll also claimed that he made these stupid video game-based movies so that he could make Attack on Darfur, which came out in 2009, won a number of awards and was generally considered to be pretty good. Realistically though, although Boll's 40-odd film portfolio did contain the occasional gem, he is more likely to be remembered for what he got up to when he wasn't in the director's chair. The man challenged 5 of his harshest critics to a boxing match, and he beat them all soundly in the ring. He later challenged fellow director Michael Bay to a fight too, but Bay politely declined. More recently, Boll told everyone to F yourself after his film Rampage 3 floundered on Kickstarter. However, he finally secured the funds and has just released the retitled Rampage President Down, which he says will be his swan song. This isn't the first time Boll has threatened to retire from filmmaking, so we'll just have to wait and see. For more information on any of these stories, or to keep up to date with the latest gaming news, head to playerattack.com. But for now, stick around, we've got plenty more still to come.
I can fly. See through walls. Summon lightning storms. And bend steel. But do I have superpowers? Nah, I just have a phone. And a few other mobile devices.
Watch Dogs 2, everyone is so thrilled that it's almost here.
We're really excited to show it to people. It's a completely new experience this time around. Watch Dogs has always been about reality, so it starts with the city we've picked. Like this time around, we go into San Francisco, the entire Bay Area. The attitude is a lot more like open-minded in these places. Like in California, everything is possible. When we went visit this place and everything to try and figure out what the game would be within that place, we met with a lot of the different companies in Silicon Valley, listening to their speech, what they're believing in, the people on the streets, and it felt very interesting to see how much they were close to the hacking culture, actually. Most of them, I would almost consider them to be hackers before, and then afterward becoming the CEOs that they become. So it's interesting then to go out to that place, see all the possibilities, and then start thinking about the game. Like Marcus has been carved into those ideas. A younger hacker, brilliant, have all the life in front of him to question what has been preconceived and told them before. He was born in San Francisco, but was gentrified with his family out into Oakland, which is pretty typical of what happened in the San Francisco Bay Area. And he was wrongly profiled by a lot of different systems, by CTOS, because he knows how computer works. He was often accused of the wrong crimes. So built a certain frustration and desire to change things up and join DedSec, and that's where the game starts. Being a DedSec hacker, working with friends, and trying to bring back control from the establishment who tend to compromise our freedom a little bit in the way they use technology sometimes.
So in the same way that the setting of Chicago really dictated the way that what the original Watch Dogs played out, this is very much, this game couldn't happen anywhere other than San Francisco.
No, that's right. This time around, Chicago was a surveilled city, so we were talking about surveillance. In the Bay Area, it's more about data mining, big data, the concept of having a new form of economy, using our information, everything we put on our phones, to start learning about us and then making decisions for us. So this entire reality is very grounded into San Francisco. It's very exciting to explore too.
Is there much that ties it back to the original game, or is this almost a complete standalone sequel?
Oh, it's standalone. It's standalone. Like it's another opus with different characters, and we want to make sure that each time we explore the universe of Watch Dogs again, we add different cities and different cultures to it. Since we want to go for something more real, there cannot be a single story about a city, and there can certainly not be a single story about the entire world.
That's a really interesting interpretation as well, because so many people just go, it's the same game and we're taking the same characters or we're taking the same story. Why was it important to make it be completely unique?
I like the idea of taking risks. Like Watch Dogs is not a franchise and it's not a game that is that easy to make. There's a lot of different systems, and I think players deserve to have freedom and new stuff at the same time. Each open world, you need to add layers to it in the way you simulate them, or else it's going to pretty much feel the same. So this time around, what we're doing is, since there's so many rich stories and thematics about technology in San Francisco, we decided to go for a more open structure. So as a DedSec hacker, you do operations, and each operation have their own thematic with a start, middle, and end. So for example, you could dig into social media's impact on democracy, and then on the other side dig into robotic and the advancements of AI, or then go into something more grounded to San Francisco with gentrification. And all of these operations you can either find in the world or unlock by getting more followers. And the more you do operations, the more you can expose truths to people, and then the more people get excited and want to join. So that's kind of how you progress in the game and unlock your skills, and also access all of the open content there's to see.
And this game isn't quite set in our San Francisco that exists today, right now in 2016. It's in a slightly different one. But is it still based on what's actually happening today?
Yes, definitely. Everything that is based on reality is where we are digging into. It's true for the city itself. It's also true for the different acts we're doing. So at the end of Watch Dogs 1, after a few months of vacation, we went to DEF CON at Vegas, and we went to listen to a lot of different hackers, like proposing their problems and all the elements. And there was a guy who was showing how to hack cars and explaining that he would be digging into that in the next couple of years. So that's kind of where the hacking cars everywhere around us comes from. At the same time, you can dig into stories about Oakland, learn a bit more about the impacts of gangs in there, like go into San Francisco downtown, learn about gentrifications. All of these elements are based on realities, even down to the different corporations and what they are digging into right now.
How much of what's in Watch Dogs 2 would have been affected by the way that people experienced the original Watch Dogs? I know that there were some people who, when they were playing the game, possibly didn't play the game the way that you guys had thought maybe people would.
I think the way I see it, it's always the player who's right. For me, a game is kind of like a music instrument. You give it to someone and you let them blow your mind with it. So when you release a game, you need to listen to them a lot. And they had interesting comments, like they wanted more control on the vehicles, for example. So we rebuilt the entire driving model to make sure that would happen, which was important because hacking every car while you go at 200 miles per hour, you need to have something that is easier to control. So there's that. Then they wanted more depth into the hacking. So this time around, we have something a lot more analog. So instead of pointing at things, pressing a button, and then it does a preconceived outcome, this time around you can lock on it and then decide which options, combine them with each other. You can remote control many different machineries instead of making them move up, down, for example. So it creates this feeling where you discover what you can do with physics, then you discover what you can do with AI, you realize you can get them arrested by changing their profile, send enemies about them, and when you start combining all these things together, it gets really exciting, and that's where you really become a hacker, right? Like you become this player that is able to look at a problem or a challenge and completely break it instead of addressing it. And that's the kind of thinking we want the players to be able to do in a second game. Third thing was the story. I think people wanted to have more narrative embedded into the fantasy. I think we've learned a lot from that. And in the second game with the Silicon Valley and the fact that you're part of a DedSec group, pretty much every single line is focused on this idea.
Nice hat.
Nice mask.
Okay, we're good.
What's up everyone, Mike here with another visit to the Video Game Shoebox, and this week we're going to take a look at one of my favourite games to have come out on the original Nintendo Entertainment System on NES. There's a lot of great games on the NES that I love, but for now we're just going to concentrate on the one and only Super Mario Bros. 2. I say one and only because in the Mario series of games there really has been nothing quite like it ever since. Other games in the franchise have tended to stick to the traditional Mario traits of running sideways, jumping on bad guys' heads to kill them, and collecting coins and mushrooms, but this game decided to ignore most of that stuff, and what it did keep, it changed. For starters, you can choose your character. Before every level, Mario, Luigi, Toad and Princess Peach are all options, and they each have different attributes such as Luigi's wiggly-legged extra high jumps, and Peach can even hover in the air for a short time. For the most part, you can get through the game by just picking one and sticking with them, but some secret areas and warp zones are much easier to get to with some of the other abilities. That's not too crazy, Mike, I hear you say? Well, how about the fact that this game has a health system? Heart containers which deplete when you get hit and fill up when you collect hearts from defeating multiple baddies. Not to mention you can sometimes find magic potions, and when you throw them on the ground a frickin' door appears, and when you go through it, you're in the dark version of the screen you were just in, and if you put the door down in the right place there'll be a mushroom there, and if you collect that you'll add an extra heart container. Coins can only be collected in the Dark World, and you will never collect 100 for an extra life, because they serve a different purpose. When you reach the end of a level, any coins you found act as tokens in a weird one-armed bandit poking machine, and when you win you get extra lives. By the way, there are no Goombas. This did act as the introduction of the Shy Guys though. You have to pull vegetables out of the ground and chuck them at enemies to defeat them, and jumping on the heads does nothing. You can even pick them up and throw them at each other. Oh, and by the way, this isn't the Mushroom Kingdom. Blasphemy! I can hear you exclaim. What possible explanation do they have for all of these changes? It's really pretty simple. This wasn't developed as a Mario game. What? Okay, here we go. Grab yourself a drink or a snack or something and get comfortable, because this is going to be a little bit of a history lesson. Super Mario Bros. 2 was released in Japan for the Famicom Disk System in 1986. Following the success of Super Mario Bros. 1, this second game was very similar to the first, albeit with a more advanced engine providing weather systems and more complex platforming, which resulted in a much harder game. The huge video games industry crash of 1983 hadn't really affected Japan all that much, and plenty of games were still developed and released during those years. Meanwhile, however, the NES, which is basically the international version of the Famicom, had been delayed for years, until the industry was recovering in the rest of the world. Not wanting their increasingly popular series to be known for frustration and therefore inaccessibility in the market that was just barely recovering internationally, nor to be stylistically outdated by the time localization and conversion to the worldwide format would be completed, Nintendo simply refused to release the game outside of Japan and instead requested a newer, friendlier Super Mario Bros. Sequel for non-Japanese gamers. That game would turn out to be what we received and now know as Super Mario Bros. 2. It started as a prototype called Yuin Kojo Doki Doki Panic, which was only minimally altered to create our favourite vegetable chucking platformer, and Super Mario Bros. 2, as we all know it, was eventually released in Japan as Super Mario USA. The Japanese version would also eventually get released worldwide as Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. It was included as part of Super Mario All-Stars, the compilation cartridge of Super Mario 1, both 2s, and 3 for Super Nintendo. Later versions would also include Super Mario World, which I'm sure the Shoebox will get to one day. Super Mario Bros. 2 will forever be one of those games with an interesting development story and the unfortunate task of being developed for a world that was recovering from a crash of an entire industry. Judging by the fact that Mario still exists to this day, despite the fact that games starring the Mustachio Jumper are fewer and farther between, something in those early days must have been done right, and Super Mario Bros. 2, or Super Mario USA if you prefer, is definitely done right. That's it for this visit to the Video Game Shoebox. Join me next time when I'll be dusting off some more cartridges. Be sure to let me know in the comments or on Twitter any games that you'd like to see get a retro regression session on here. I've been Mike Notridge, and I will see you next time. What's in your video game shoebox?
So you want to upgrade your gaming PC to get a little more grunt out of it, but you're really not sure where to start. You also don't want to spend too much money and want to get the best boost for your buck. One of the easiest ways for you to do this is to upgrade your video card. These days, high-end video cards are a two-horse race between AMD and Nvidia. We were recently able to get our hands on AMD's latest range, the Radeon RX series of cards, made up of three, the RX 460, 470 and 480. Now, while you might think that different models simply come with differing amounts of bells and whistles, it's worth noting that different generations of the same card don't just change the frame rate of your game, they also change what the game looks like, the features you can enable in the game, and even the resolution of the game that you're playing. So, let's take a look at these three and figure out how they differ from each other, and that means getting a little technical. All three support HDMI and DisplayPort, and both the 460 and 470 also feature DVI-D. The main difference is speed and computing units and how many monitors they can support. The RX 480 runs at 1120MHz with 36 compute units and either 4GB or 8GB of RAM. The RX 470 comes in with 928MHz, 32 compute units and 4GB, while the RX 460 runs at a quicker 1090MHz but with only 14 compute units and 2GB of RAM. As for how many monitors you can plug in, the 460 supports 3, you can use 4 with the 480, and the 470 supports a massive 5 monitors. All three support 4K and they all feature FreeSync, enabling a FreeSync supported monitor to sync up with the same frame rate as the card. Other supported features include Crossfire to support multiple cards in the same computer, AMD's iFinity for multi-display gaming support and support for virtual reality, as well as DirectX 12 to get the best graphics from the latest games. But what does this all mean for gaming and, importantly, for your wallet? In short, good things. These three AMD cards are some of the best value for performance on the market, marking some of the best performance for minimal spend. Although they might not be the fastest available cards out there, that award goes to the Nvidia GTX 1080 or Titan X, they certainly are among the best for price. The RX 480 sells for $400 Australian, the RX 470 is around $330, and the RX 460 is just $200. Compare that to Nvidia's top-end card, the GTX 1080, which sells for around $1,000. But don't be fooled by the price. They might not be the fastest card, but they certainly are no slouch when it comes to performance. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I wouldn't recommend the RX 460 card for a gaming machine. It is a budget card, and although it'll do okay, you really do get what you pay for. In the words of Molly, go do yourself a favour, find a few more dollars and spring for at least the RX 470. Both the RX 470 and 480 will do nicely for most people, so let's look at some of the gaming performance of these two cards. The sweet spot for both cards is using a 1080p monitor. If you want to run something higher than that, I would start to look at the higher end, more expensive cards. However, on a decent PC with a reasonable CPU, you should average quite good speeds across most games with either the RX 470 or 480. Under light loads, the cards perform very similarly, with less than 10% difference between them. But under heavy load, which is where it really matters, you can really see the difference. The RX 480 performs up to 100% better than the RX 470 under load, and these numbers can mean a lot in gaming. It can mean the difference between smooth gameplay and a jerky sideshow. The difference between silky 45 FPS and awkward 20 FPS. It can also mean the difference between a headshot and a keyboard destroying rage quit because you were killed while your PC was unable to update the screen quickly enough. To put this another way, the Radeon series of cards aren't currently the cream of the crop, but they are some of the best value for money for the gamer on a budget. They might have been left behind a little by the latest release Nvidia cards, but they will definitely let you play most games at a performance level that you will be happy with for a fraction of the cost. And that's about it for this edition of Player Attack. Thanks for watching. Next week, we check out the state of esports in Australia in 2016 with a look at the World of Tanks APAC Season 1 finals held recently in Sydney. Meanwhile, Johnny sits down with Ubisoft to chat about Ghost Recon Wildlands, which takes the Tom Clancy series to an all-new open world. In the meantime, you can catch us at playerattack.com. We're on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. And if you've got something you want to say, send us an email, mailbox@playerattack.com, or just hop on our forums. Also, if you want to support Player Attack, you can find us on Patreon and help us bring you the latest in gaming news, plus all of these wonderful interviews and reviews from the world of video games. Till next week, I'm Jessica Citizen, and this is Player Attack.